Welcome back, Wargamers. Today I'm going to show you an easy method for making some high quality roads for your wargaming table that is also not going to break the bank. They're going to be very cheap. Now I'm going to show you one technique that's a really quick and easy way to make your roads and be done in no time, and then I'm going to also show you a way in which you can make some flexible roads, which will take a little bit more time, but which will also be pretty easy. And they're all going to be based off these high resolution PDFs of cobblestone roads that you can get off of Wargamer Vault, and you can mess with the overlays and add weathering effects and things to the roads, and they're actually pretty high quality. So instead of using other materials to simulate the cobblestone, I'm just going to go quick and easy. I'm going to print this off and I'm going to paste it to either, as you can see here, vinyl tile, or for my flexible roads I'll be putting it on canvas, which is a great material for making flexible rivers and roads and things of that nature. So first things first, let me show you just how I do the more simple version of my roads. So I just took a piece of vinyl right here and I traced out the outline of the road. These roads are all 3 inches by 6 inches. So I have that traced out on the vinyl, and now all I need to do is cut it out. And as I said before in my video about vinyl tile, it's great and easy to work with. You can just cut this out with regular plain old scissors. You don't need any special equipment to do that. So here I'm just going to cut through the vinyl and use that as the kind of the basis for my roads, and that's going to be really nice because it's a very thin, it's not very thick vinyl, so it will sit very close to the mat. It's not going to be flexible, so you're not going to be able to have it kind of drape it over hills and such, but it will be a very easy process. So once I've cut out my vinyl backing, all I need to do now is to, of course, cut out the road from my paper here, and I'm just going to use regular PVA to bind it to the vinyl, and then after that I'm going to cover it with some matte acrylic finish. I'm using brush on because it's too cold where I live right now to use a spray on matte varnish. So here I've placed some PVA upon the vinyl backing, and now I'm just going to take my cutout piece of road and place it on the vinyl. Now I'm going to try and do my best to center it, and once I'm happy with the placement of the road on there, I want to make sure that the paper is also laying flat. When you're messing with these kind of paper craft terrain pieces, the paper often likes to kind of crinkle or roll up, and in order to kind of combat that, one thing I like to do is I take just a normal pen and I roll it across the surface to make sure I get any creases out of the paper. Very simple process, and when it dries you'll have a nearly completely flat road that you'll be working with, which will look great. It won't catch any light on the crevices or anything like that. So I also will have to deal with these kind of overhanging edges. The vinyl's actually too thin for the road PDF that I have. So after the top layer is dried, I'll just trim off the side edges and glue those down, which will give a nice kind of three-dimensional look to your roads. So here we have the completed road, and I was able to kind of finish this 6-inch section of road in only a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes. So you could really crank out a few feet of this kind of vinyl-based road pretty quickly. It won't be flexible, but it'll be fast and easy, and once you put it on your gaming mat, it'll actually look pretty good. I really think this PDF is actually really high quality, very high quality picture. So now I'm going to show you kind of the more in-depth road. This is to make, if you want your roads to be flexible, to kind of ride over, any hills or terrain that you've created, you can use a similar method that we used to with the vinyl. We're just going to be, of course, putting it on canvas. All right, so step number 1, kind of mark out the area you want your roads to encompass. Here I have it's a 5-inch wide piece of canvas, and I'm going to be baking them in 1-foot sections. And I want about 1 inch on either side of the road kind of sticking out, and on either side I'll add some caulk mixed with grit, which I'll paint up and then add some flock to, so it'll give a pretty nice effect, add some more three-dimensional kind of terrain to what would otherwise be just this 2D PDF. So first thing, again, I'm just adding some PVA to the cutout piece of road here. You want to put a pretty liberal amount, not too much so that it totally soaks through the paper and makes it easier to tear, but you want a fair amount on there to make sure that it adheres to the canvas backing, especially since the canvas backing being kind of porous is going to absorb a lot of that glue. So once I'm happy with the amount of glue there, I'm going to center it to kind of make sure that there's an even amount of canvas on either side of the road. Once I'm happy, I'll press it down and take the pen that we used before to kind of drag it across the canvas to get out all those kind of bubbles and creases that tend to appear on these paper craft products. And I'm going to do the same with another section of length. I want each section to be a foot long, so that means I have to combine two of these different sections together. And so same thing, I want to make sure that the two sections kind of align and slightly overlap with one another so you don't have a gap between the two sections of road. And then I take my pen and get out all the small little folds and bubbles that will appear underneath the paper. Just as a word of caution, some pieces of canvas have kind of like this almost plastic backing to the canvas mat. And I thought maybe that if I glued it to the backing part of the canvas that it would actually lay flatter, but don't do that. It does not. This regular canvas stuff works way better. Actually absorbing some of the glue helps the paper actually lay flatter. I got a lot of bubbles and creases and things when I did it on the kind of the canvas backing. So just a word of caution. So now I'm going to layer the road with some matte varnish just to give it some protection as we're doing the rest of the steps of the road. So just go over one time. Here I'm using brush on varnish because again it's too cold, middle of winter, I can't spray. But if you have rattle can or spray matte varnish, go ahead and use that. It'll work just fine. And we're going to do this several times. You really want to be able to protect your paper because the worst thing that could happen is something spills on your road, or for whatever reason a unit kind of tears a section of your road up. So I'm actually moving on here to what I did to texture the sides of the road. Unfortunately, I forgot to press play for much of this process, but all I did is I mixed some fine sand and bigger grit into some caulk, and I'm just lining it on either sides of my road to give it that initial texture. Very easy. You can also just use sand and PVA if you wish as well. So once that's dried, you'll notice whenever you mess with canvas, if you're doing roads or if you're doing rivers, as it's drying, no matter how well you kind of hold down the sides, you're going to notice that it's not going to want to lay completely flat. So to combat that, I always line the back of my roads and my rivers with just some plain old duct tape. And so that kind of gives it a little bit more rigidity. It helps it keep its form a little bit better and holds down any of the sides that want to curl. All right. I've heard other people do things such as line the back with just a thin strip of caulk to help weigh it down, but I found this works well enough. So you just coat each section. I kind of go both ways. I set strips of duct tape going along it and then going across it, and in the end you'll notice it lays pretty flat. It's not going to lay perfectly flat. That's just kind of the nature of the beast when you're making these flexible roads and rivers with the canvas, but it's good enough to me. It's not going to cast any shadows on your wargaming mat. So once I've finished putting the duct tape backing onto the road, now it is time to paint either side of my road with a very dark brown, a burnt umber color, and that will be the base for kind of a simple triad of colors I'm going to use to paint this roadside. So first off, just go ahead and coat a pretty heavy coat of this burnt umber on either side. Be careful not to get it onto your roads, but if you put some matte varnish down on your road, you should be able to just wipe off any excess paint that happens to get on it. So as I'm painting either side of this road, we're just going to do a really quick and easy paint job. This burnt umber will be our base color. We'll do a mid-tone in which I basically take some buff titanium and mix it into this burnt umber. And my final layer, my highlight color, will be a dry brushing of just plain old buff titanium. And that'll give it a pretty nice dynamic look to the road. And as far as flocking goes and the vegetation I'm going to put on this road, I want this road to be able to be used for a variety of geographic locations like Mediterranean or Northern European locations, and so I'm just going to be pretty sparse on the flocking and only put a few bushes here or there, and that should be that should be good. So next up, I'm going to put on my mid-tone layer. I just put a little bit of buff titanium into that burnt umber, and I'm over brushing it over the sides of the roads. I loaded the brush up quite a bit because you want still most of the road to be covered with this color, only the really deep recesses in between the texture to hold that really dark burnt umber color. So we'll go ahead and we will line both sides of the roads with just this quick over brushing. I'm only going to do one layer of this before I move on to our high highlight, and as it dries it should give it this nice subtle tone between the two different colors here. And that's basically it. Very simple, very easy paint job. And the final level, I'm doing a real dry brush here. I wiped off most of the paint, and I'm only kind of hitting the very tops of the texture on the sides of the road with this buff titanium to give it that really high highlight. The parts that kind of stick up the highest, I'm going to make sure the flock doesn't quite hit, so it'll kind of stick out. It's kind of broken ground among the flock and give it kind of this nice look. Whenever I'm doing terrain, I want some of the ground to show through. I don't want it just to be straight flocked. I think it gives it a more realistic appearance. So here we are now. Once our different dry brushing has dried, I'm just adding a little bit of PVA to the mat, and we are going to stick on our first kind of round of flock. And for this, I'm using kind of a dark, I believe it's a steppes, nomadic steppes grass, kind of the dark green and yellow color. It will work for a variety of different locations. So I'm just applying some PVA with a brush to different areas around the roadside. I want some of the ground that we just painted to show through, so I'm not going to cover all of the roadside with this flock. So here I'm just pressing down the static grass. I don't have a static grass applicator, so I do it the old-fashioned way, where I just kind of press down on it, shake it, and tap it, and it kind of makes the grass stand on end. So it's a quick fix if you don't have one of those fancy applicators. So here I'm just tapping it and making it stand on end. So once I flock the other side using the same process, now I'm just going to put down a few bushes here or there to give it a more three-dimensional effect to the road. Since the road is a PDF, it's two-dimensional. Adding a few kind of bushes here and there will kind of trick the eye into thinking the whole thing is a three-dimensional road. And that's about it. So put down your vegetation. If you're just going to be using this road to simulate a grassland, you can go all out and put flowers and fancy stuff on the sides of it. But there we go. Road is finished, and I think it looks pretty good. Standing from a few feet away, can't even tell. It's just some paper and a canvas mat. So here's the finished product, which I put down on a fur mat and put some figures on there. And as I said before, I'm pretty pleased with the result. I think that this was a very quick and inexpensive way to make some roads. I made 6 feet of roads in only a few hours, so that was great. And really, you can't even tell that the road is two-dimensional when you look at it from a few feet away. And since it's placed on the canvas, you'll be able to put the road on any piece of terrain, and the road will fit the contours of that terrain very easily. So hopefully you'll go out now and make your own roads. And if you did enjoy this video, please do not hesitate to like and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate all my subscribers, and I will be back soon with more terrain tutorials. Thanks for watching, and take care.